Good morning, Tanners. I'm here with Puppy Sets Training. I'm going to be doing Apollo's demonstration for you this morning. I'm sure you guys are excited to get him. Now, before we get into the bulk of this demonstration, a couple things that I want to talk about, and that is consistency and management. Those two factors are what you have to do in order for all this training to transition over. So the consistency, that's consistently correcting as well as rewarding. So when I reward, he knows the word okay, and that means that he's done the behavior correctly, and there is a reward coming. Right now we do use food very heavily, and as he gets accustomed to you and he's doing everything really well, you can start to wean him off of those treats, that food reward, but also still try and reward your dog. And so we also use affection as well as toys. Now on correcting your dog, we use the word no or no. And I treat that somewhat like a misdemeanor felony type of deal. So regardless if he does something wrong, he's going to get corrected. However, the severity of the correction depends upon the behavior. So if he does something simple, like say he breaks a stay, I would just tell him no, and I'd have him do it again. Whereas if he did something a little more serious, maybe he tried to jump up on me or steal food out of my hand, I would be a lot more firm in the way that I correct him. And I would do that by adjusting my voice fluctuation and my body language. Those two factors are what a dog reads the most. Now the other side of this is the management aspect. So once again, he is still a puppy, and so there is going to be all this learning and this growing and maturing, and there is going to be times that he tests the water. And so at this point you want to make sure that you have control over your dog as well as you have supervision. If you don't have control of him and he manages to sneak off in another room and he has an accident, there's nothing you can do about it. And so what you want to do is make sure that you have constant supervision and you don't give him free access to the whole house. You can keep him on a leash next to you, you can tether him up if you're outside where he's not in a fenced-in area, but somehow you have to maintain control. Also block off rooms, use baby gates. But we call this managing it. And so if you can manage your dog, you're going to save yourself from having accidents. He's not going to have opportunities to have accidents. He's also not going to have opportunities to go and find something and tear it up before you notice, or dig holes, anything like that. So if you can keep that supervision, keep your dog busy as well as right next to you, then that's going to save you a lot of issues. And I will talk a little bit about this as we come up on other points. So now we'll get into the first phase of our program, which is socialization. So we spent a lot of time on that. During that phase, we like to engage with our dog, make it so that it's very positive engaging with us, and to ignore the distractions around. It's also a time that we make sure that there's no severe anxiety, timid, or aggressive behaviors, which we have not noticed any of those with Apollo. He's just very, very sweet. So if you do get him home and he seems really stressed out, especially if it's over a noise or an object, what you can do is just engage with him, bring him over, show him that it's no big deal, have him do some commands and just jackpot him. Okay, good boy, okay. Make it so that he completely forgets about whatever's bothering him. Now, we'll hop into our manners. So the first manner that I am going to show you is his gates and his doorways. So anytime he comes out of the crate, he goes through a house door, I do expect him to hold a stay. This should be an automatic behavior. However, once again, he is still a puppy, as well as he's going to be new to you, and so you guys got to get used to each other. So if he did try and break, what I would do is I would tell him no. If he was persistent on pushing his way out, I might also close the door or block him with my leg. I'm not going to ask him to stay. It should be automatic. Okay, good boy. Okay, come on. Good boy. So now, the next manner is what we call his greeting. And that's when I call him over. Good boy. Good boy. I'm going to wait for him to sit before I engage with him. Good boy. So this does a couple things. One, it gets his eye contact. You know that he's focused on you. The other is it keeps him from jumping, because it's basically a replacement behavior. He's going to be occupied doing something else. Good boy. Good boy. Now I'll show you his mealtime manners. So anytime I feed him, I expect him to hold a sit stay. So where he's sitting, I'll just ask him to stay. No, stay. Okay, good boy. Okay. Good boy. You can see that he looks to me for permission. Now you'll also notice that he kind of stood up there, so I quickly told him no because I do want him to stay planted when I ask him to stay. Also notice we spend some time putting our hands down in his food bowl. I want to make sure that he's not aggressive or defensive with me being here. If they are, we call that resource guarding, but we want to make sure that he's good with me handling him when he eats. Now I will go over his routine here in just a little bit, but just along those lines we want to make sure that there's no aggression, and so we spend time handling him, like his ears, his paws, his tail, just making sure that he's not defensive, which he's not. He's super sweet that way. Now, going along with that aggression, so sometimes playful behavior can be mistaken for aggression. And generally that happens with kids because your puppy wants to play along, and kids like a giant squeaky toy. They squeal, they run, it's a lot of fun, and your dog just wants to play along, so they end up grabbing a pant leg or knocking a child over. All things that you don't want to happen. So I make a rule to protect against any accidents, and that's when small children play with my dogs, they have to have a toy. That way, the toy acts as a barrier. If I'm running, he's going to go after the toy, he's not going to go after a pant leg. Or if I was maybe a little bit nervous of dogs, I could then throw the toy and direct him away. Good boy, good boy. Come here, Apollo. So also I can ask him to, Apollo, drop it. Good boy, good boy. And he should just spit it out onto the ground. If I'm playing with him, I'll use the toy as a reward. I'm not going to pull out food. Because if I do, he'll get distracted by the food and he'll no longer want to play. But also, if he had something that he didn't want to let go of, I could grab it, hold on to it, and I could just ask him to drop it and he should spit it out, which he's really good about it. There you go, drop it. Good boy, good boy. Okay. Now also, grab a bully stick here. So a bully stick is very high value to Apollo. And so I want to make sure that he's also going to be good with me handling him when he has something as high value as this. As well as I can, keep a hold of it, pet him. I don't want him to growl or get kind of guarding, resource guarding at all. I can also, while he's chewing on it, ask him to drop it. Good boy, and expect him to spit it out. Good boy. Now, we've also taught him to be very gentle with his mouth, and so I can just ask him gently, and I expect him to be cautious. I don't want to feel his teeth. I do always give it to him in the palm of my hand. That way he's not grabbing my fingers, like if I were to give it between my thumb and forefinger. We have worked on that, still making sure that he is going to be gentle, but if he gets excited, sometimes they can grab, and so it's better just to have it in the palm of your hand. Oh, good boy. Gently. Good boy. So, let's see. So now, two of our bigger manners are ones that you need to really just set a precedence with. The first one's chewing. So I doubt you can see it on the video, but if I were to show you his teeth, he's lost a few of his front teeth, but he's still got quite a few baby teeth to lose, as well as he's got cut molars. So chewing is a behavior you can't escape. He needs to chew. So you don't want everything in your house chewed up, and the best way to prevent that is avoiding and replacing. So avoiding, the best method. If you don't give him access to whatever you don't want chewed up, it's not going to get chewed up. However, that's not possible in your home. There's always something he's going to have access to chew on. So that's where replacing comes in. And you want to be really consistent with this, especially over the next couple weeks as he transitions. And so what that is, though, is if I saw him go up and he started chewing on a pillow or a soft bed, I would tell him no, and I would replace it with something soft, like that plush toy. If he wanted to chew on a table leg, I'd tell him no, and I'd replace it with something like this bully stick. Try and match the texture. He's chewing based on what he feels like his mouth needs, whether it needs something that's soft and plush, or something hard that he can really just dig into. And so if you match those textures, you teach him what he's allowed to chew on and what he's not. So also, boredom causes destructive behavior. So you want to make sure that you give him things to do, both when he's outside or whether he's inside, whether you have a downtime. What I like to do is, so if we're reading a book or watching a show, I'll just give him something to chew on. That way he's just going to take it to his bed and he's going to lay there and chew on it. But the critical thing here is if he got up and left, so whether it was a bully stick or a toy, he left that object, I would immediately take it away. He does not get free access to even his own objects. Otherwise, he's going to get bored with them and he's going to go find something new. So if you continue to take it away, you keep this like novelty effect. Boy. So, and outside, if you can give him stuff to chew on, stuff to play with, then it's going to keep him from chewing stuff up you don't want him to, as well as digging. Any destructive behavior can be prevented with keeping their mind engaged and exercise needs met. So, the next one is is jumping. Jumping is a big behavior for puppies. We spend a lot of time on that. He does really, really well. But we have taught him the command off, and that's if he were to jump up on a table or up on me, I tell him off and expect him to get down. Now, it's important that if you did, like if he was coming up and he was going to jump on me, it's important that you never step back. As soon as you step back, it's a game. He's going to come even faster, he's going to try and jump even more. So instead, if he was running at me, I would step into him, and that way I stand my ground. I show that, hey, I'm the boss, you're not allowed to jump on me. But then if he did, I would bring my knee up into his chest and block him, as well as accompanying him with the command off. The goal there is to actually put him on his back, and if you do that, you only have to do it once. I know it scares a lot of people, but if you think of a wolf pack, or because dogs are a pack animal, that's how an alpha will show his dominance, by putting the other pack member on their back. And so the same thing with dogs. Like, this is actually considered a submissive behavior. Of course, he loves his belly rub, but he's also showing that he respects me. Now, it's also important that if you have him on a leash and he's wanting to jump, I would pop him twice and tell him off. Use what we call as a leash correction. The big thing there is don't hold him back. If you're restraining him and he's jumping against you, he's starting to think that, well, I can keep jumping, she's got me, she's not letting me get there. Where instead, if you give him the space to jump, and when he does, you pop him twice and then walk away, you're forcing him to have to restrain himself. So, but he's done really, really well with that. And the last thing I want to talk about is mouthing here with the manners. And so if he wanted to put my hand in his mouth, or even your kids are wanted to kind of chew on shoelaces while you're sitting there, I would quickly tell him no, and I would grab his muzzle like that. And you're just going to hold it real still. You're not clamping down, you're just holding it. But I want to teach him that he's not allowed to mouth on me. So that concludes our manners, and now we'll talk about our obedience commands. So now, with our obedience commands, the first two that I'm going to talk about are come and watch me. They kind of go hand in hand. The first one, though, is just to get eye contact. Very simple command. You can do this a number of different ways, but all I'm looking for is eye contact. Watch me. Okay, good boy. You can see that just by distracting him, watch me. Okay, good boy. And then I'll reward him when he looks at me. You can add different distractions, but try and keep this one very, very treat loaded. Try and make sure that it's very positive, because like I said, if you get his eye contact, you know that you have his focus. So I can even put some food right in front of his nose here. Watch me. Okay, good boy. And just like that. So, very simple command, but it can actually be very valuable if you just need him to stop and make eye contact, so then you can either call him to come or do something different. Now, we also use his name very similar. Like Apollo. Okay, good boy. I'm just looking for that eye contact. Now, his name is a little bit more of an informal version of it, because I'm not going to treat him every time I say his name, but I do want him to look at me. I also use his name every time I call him to come. So the come or a recall command is going to be your most important command, but it's also one that I see a lot of people burn. And so I do set some pretty strict rules with it, which I am going to break my first one just so you can see how I present the command. Because when I ask him to come, I want to be very inviting. I want it very positive. He should be excited to come and see me. So when I do this, I'll go, Apollo, come! Okay, good boy, good boy, good boy, good boy. You'll notice I bend down, my voice got a little bit higher, I'm very inviting, and then I'll reward him as soon as he gets close to me. I give him a treat and pet him. I want to make sure that I reward that behavior of coming to me versus asking him to sit and rewarding him for a sit. So, like I said, I just broke my number one rule, and that's I never use the come command in the house. Reason is because in the house I have control. And so I don't want him to get basically callous to the command, because if you say it all the time, like you overuse it, he's going to get to the point where he's like, it doesn't mean anything, I'm just going to go the other way. Or it's you use it because you need him out of the way, or you call him to come and then you put him in a crate, something like that. And so you don't want to burn out that essential command by simply overusing it or building a negative connotation to it. So instead, if you're in the house and you want him, you can, come here, something like that. He's going to come running over to you. So use kissy noises, come here, something like that to really to get him to come when you have that level of control. Now, the other thing is I want to make sure that I work on this command a lot more than I use it. So what I mean is I want to make sure that I spend a lot of time doing it for no reason other than just to give him a treat and let him have fun. So what I'll do is I'll start by taking a long lead, like a 20 or 30 foot lead, and you can start in the backyard or you can start out at a park, but I'll just keep a hold at the end of the leash and let him roam around. With that 20 or 30 feet, he can get out, he can sniff, he can run and play, basically just be a dog. But then every minute or two, I'll call him to come just to give him a treat and let him go again. So that way it's very rewarding. He's checking in, he's getting a treat, especially if it's something high value like cheese or a hot dog, but then he's getting to explore and be a dog. And so that way you're really building this come command. But then if he was to fail, like if he saw a squirrel or something that he really wanted to get to, you have a hold of that leash, and so I'll immediately give him an initial good pop and then reel him in. And so there's no way that he can escape and not follow through. Now, once he gets a little bit older and you feel like he's doing just a great job with this on the long lead, then I would take him somewhere where I still have some control, that he has a little bit more freedom. Whether that be just a big fenced-in area like a backyard or a park, but somewhere where if he were to fail, I can go and get him. But I'll start out by keeping like a 10-to-1 ratio, so 10 times just to give him a treat and let him go again. For that one time, maybe he would leave the park or he goes inside to go into the crate, something that could be negative. You want to make sure that you keep these positive repetitions. But I would not let him off leash in an area where he could get into trouble or could get hurt until I know for a matter of fact that he's going to respond every single time I call him to come. A lot of people think that a come command is a basic command, but it's not. To get your dog to reliably come to you, especially off leash, is a very advanced command, and it needs to be practiced and worked on a lot. Apollo does great with it right now. We do a lot of off-leash stuff right here, and he responds very, very well. But that's also to me, I know kind of when he's not going to respond, and instead of calling him to come in those situations, I'm just going to go and get him. That way I don't burn out that command, and I don't teach him that, well, if whatever that is more appealing, I can go do that when he calls me to come. The other thing you don't want to do is if he does get into trouble and you don't want to start screaming at him to come, because then all you're going to do is burn out that command. He's finally going to realize, hey, that he needs to come to you, and then when he gets to you, you're going to be frustrated, and then you get mad at your dog, and all you did there was teach him not to come to you. You can see that he's trying to get himself a comfortable spot to lay down. He does that a lot in the crate now too. He'll paw at it. Just so you know, that's more so that he just needs to lay down. So now I'm going to go over our hand signals. Come here, Apollo. Good boy. Good boy. So the first one is a sit, which is just a scoop over the nose. Then down, I'll take my hand flat, and then stay as a stop sign. Good boy. Good boy. Come here. So I'm gonna pull him off the bed and I'll show you all three of those. Come here, Apollo. Sit. Down. Stay. Add a little distraction here. Okay, good boy. Now we have both a sit and a down stay. So when he's in a down state, he's not allowed to come up. However, if I put him in a sit state, sit, stay, then I don't care if he lays down. However, once he lays down, he's not allowed to come back up. And he does have great stays, especially for a puppy, but always try and improve those. We have what we call, nope, and so if he broke, I'm going to put him right back. Stay. And I might be just pushing him a little bit hard. Those 3Ds are distance, duration, distraction, and talking, he feels like I'm ignoring him, so that's a big distraction. Okay, good boy. And so if he breaks, I'm going to ease the distraction a little bit, make sure that I shorten it, try and make sure that I always end on correct behavior. That's super important. Always end on a correct behavior. Now, if he broke 3 times in a row, at that point I know it's me, it's not him. I'm doing something that's really throwing him off, so I might try and really shorten it and build back up to that, as well as maybe just adjust my posture. Oh boy. So the next 2 commands don't necessarily have hand signals, but I always put myself in a position where he can read my body language. And so I'll tell him, Apollo, crate. I'll tell him crate, stand near it. If he hesitated, I might tap on the top. Okay, good boy, okay. And you can see that he is expected to stay. Crate, good boy. I do give him the treat when he goes in because some of the time I will close the door. Okay, and being released from the crate is a reward in itself. So very similar, I can ask him, go to bed. And I don't care what position he's in as long as all 4 paws are on the bed. And then once again, it is an expected stay. Okay, leave it. Good boy, good boy. You can see now our last command is the leave it command. And I threw some cheese on the floor, and when he jumped off to get it, I just told him to leave it, and he quickly stopped and paid attention to me and did not proceed towards the cheese. Now, even when I'm working like that with food, I still do not let him get the food off the ground, because I want to teach him that leave it means leave it permanently. He's not allowed to then turn around and go get it after I've rewarded him and told him he did it right. Because if you do that, then when you're on a walk, down the street or wherever, and he comes across something dead, you tell him to leave it, and he'll just stop for a second and wait, and then run back and try and grab it. And so, even with food, everything is leave it permanently. So, that concludes our obedience commands. Now we're going to quickly talk about his house and crate training. So, first the crate training. So we've been spending a ton of time on this, and he is doing a lot better. So during the night, he's actually been sleeping through the night the majority of the time. I'd say about 80% of the time. The other 20% of the time, we give him a break partway through the night. So that's great. That is doing so good. Now, we don't want him to regress when he gets home. And so if I were you, I would set an alarm, and the first couple nights just give him a break partway through the night. Which I'm going to give him something to chew on while we talk. The other thing is making sure that you give him plenty of time to run around before he goes in the crate, so that 1, he burns that energy off, and 2, he empties his system. If you don't, he'll probably pee in there because he didn't get a chance to go, or he swallowed a whole bunch of water. So make sure that you give him adequate time to run around and to clear his system. So at night, give him a break partway through. That way he doesn't regress. During the day, so we have been slowly building this up. Usually when our dogs go home, they're in the crate about 3 or so hours at a time without needing a break. Right now, we've been allowing Apollo to be in there for 2 hours without needing a break. Just because we've slowly worked that up. Before it was, You know, we started it every 30 minutes there when we were having issues and letting him out. And sometimes he would just get in there and immediately pee. So we've seen a lot of progress, but make sure that you don't push him too hard. Make sure that you give him, like I said, that adequate time to go to the bathroom before he goes in there. And if you notice him start moving around, you quickly get him out and you take him to the bathroom. So, funny thing is, we kind of have to work on this two different ways. One is with us in the room. That's where we've been able to get 2 hours. If we're not in the room, we're still at an hour, because sometimes he gets a little, it's not even really stress, it's just that he doesn't think we're here, and so he might pee a little bit in the crate. So we're gradually building that up. Whereas I'm filming this demo a week before we're sending him home. By the time we send him home, I can just about guarantee that he'll be up to 2 hours with nobody here, and we should be at 3 with us here, with somebody here. So keep that in mind, but make sure you do give him breaks, make sure you give him that exercise, and allow him to empty his system before you put him in the crate. The nice thing is, well, he is just silent in the crate. He never makes a noise. And so you don't have to deal with any of that barking, whether you're here or gone. He does really, really well that way. So, but the big thing also with the crate is I see a lot of people burn out the command, and that's because they only send him into the crate when they're going to be locked up. Make sure that you practice this command, and that way he's not going to get stubborn and resist going into the crate. So if I'm, in the house, I'm close to the crate, I'll send him in like 3 or 4 times just to give him a treat and let it go again. Also, a couple times before bed, but keep it irregular so that he doesn't start to see a pattern and then realize, oh, I'll go in twice here, get the treats, and then the third time I'm gone because she's going to lock me out. Try and be a little bit unpredictable there. So, but he is doing good. Just also make sure that you keep him on a good routine. This is going to help with both the house training and the crate training. So know that, he pees multiple times a day. This transition is going to have him pee even more, and so you don't want to overload him with water and food. So we feed him twice a day, usually about 6:30 or 7 in the morning, and then 6 o'clock in the evening. I give him 1.5 cups. You'll probably be getting close to where you'll start feeding him 2 cups each meal. But know that he's going to have to go to the bathroom within 30 minutes to an hour after eating. The reason, though, that I feed him at 6 in the evening, that one I'm really strict about because I want 4 hours just to completely clear his system before he goes into the crate for the night. And we've been putting him in at 10 and getting him out about 6. Now water, I don't want to have him just engorge himself in water, and so the first little while I would restrict it a little bit unless he's outside. If he's outside in heat, give him unlimited access to water. But if he's in the house, I'll give it to him with meals and 4 other times throughout the day. And make sure that you take it away by about 8 o'clock. Make sure that he has 2 hours without water before he goes into the crate. And that's a good rule of thumb, even if you're going somewhere. Take the water away at least an hour before you go, and then spend some time letting him run around and using the bathroom before you put him in. So now we'll talk about his house training. So we'll start with the bells. So I'm going to show you my favorite way to do this. This is kind of an expedited process. I like to do it quick, and that way I get a whole bunch of repetitions. And through these repetitions, he's seeing where the bells are at, and we're doing the same thing. We're going out to the bathroom. And so it just allows him to pick up on what it means even quicker, because I know that he knows the bells here. He's doing really, really well with that aspect. He'll ring the bells and go to the bathroom. But I want to make sure that this transitions easy into your home. And so that the house training and with him, the crate training are going to be very critical for you, things that you have to be a little bit more involved in versus like the commands that are going to slide over really easy. So I'm going to ask him to drop it. Good boy. Take his pulley stick away. Now what I'm going to do to start is targeting the bells. I want to get him excited about them. He's going to realize that he gets lots of treats just for touching them. And so it turns into a game. Okay, good boy. Now let's mark it every time that he touches it. And I'm going to do this 4 or 5 times. And this is called free shaping. Okay, and so it's alright if it takes a few minutes. You just got to be patient. Okay, good boy. And allow him to figure it out himself what gets the reward. Okay, good boy. So I'm going to let him do it one more time here. Okay, good boy. After he rings them a handful of times out of my hand, then I'm going to bring him over to the door, and I'm also going to grab a leash, because I'm going to take him out. So I'm going to do basically the same thing. I'm going to stand here and stare at the bells. Okay, outside. But I'm going to change the wording a little bit, emphasize the word outside. Okay, outside, good boy. Okay, outside, good boy. I'm going to do it one more time. Okay, outside. And now I'm going to take him out. Okay. Okay. Also notice him waiting at the doorways. So when I take him outside, I'll give him maybe a minute or two. Let him sniff around, find his spot to go. I always take him on a leash because I don't want any playing to go on when he rings the bells. It's just go to the bathroom. So if you go out there and he goes, I'm going to be very positive. Okay, good outside, good boy. And I'm going to pet him and give him a few treats, jackpot it, make sure that it's very, very exciting that he went. He gets praised for it. If he doesn't go, I'm just going to walk around for a minute and then I'll come right back in. There's no emotion, there's no nothing there. Okay, good boy. You can see that it makes him very excited about the bells. And I'm going to take him back out. Okay. Okay. Now when you do this, it does get him very excited about the bells, so I'm actually going to remove them for a minute. Just so we can finish this demo. So, if he sits in the grass or he lays down, then I know he doesn't have to go and I'll come back in. If you know that he needs to poop, he hasn't done it in a while, I'll give him maybe an extra minute or so. Generally, he will go number 2 about an hour after eating, so he'll do it morning, and then he'll go again middle of the day, and then again in the evening. So, that's kind of his schedule there for that. Now, if I was doing this at your home, though, I would immediately go back over to the bells. So right after I come back in, let him ring it again, 2 or 3 times, reward him for it, go back out. Come back in, do it again. Do that like 4 times. The reason being is I just want a lot of quick repetitions where he's engaged with me, of seeing where the bells are at and seeing where we're going to the bathroom. And after I do that, then I'm going to set a timer for every 30 minutes for the next 24 hours. The exception is if he's in the crate, he doesn't have to come out every 30 minutes. But while he's out, every 30 minutes, I'm going to take him over to the bells, let him ring it, go outside. If he goes, praise him. If he doesn't, come back in, reset the timer. First 24 hours. After that, you can start to gradually work him up. So the next day, do every 45 minutes. The next day, do every hour. And then so on up to 2 hours. So all of my dogs, before they go home, have to be able to hold themselves inside for 2 hours. I know that he can do that. Now, you do not want to let him pass 2 hours within the next month, because you don't want to give him the opportunity to have an accident. If you can stay ahead of his schedule and you can make sure that he's under proper management, you're not going to have any issues. But if you let him, have too much rain too quick, that's when you will have issues. So, super important, 100% supervision. That way he doesn't have an opportunity to have an accident. And once again, if you don't see it, there's nothing you can do about it. However, if he were to squat in front of me, I would go, no, 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 and clap, no, 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 grab him, run him outside. And at that point, as frustrated as you are that he just had an accident, hopefully it doesn't happen, but if it does, you're frustrated, you get him outside, and if he finishes, then I will reward him, and it provides a unique opportunity to make things black and white. He just got corrected for peeing in the house, but rewarded for peeing outside. And that quick, it will help him understand. Like I said, hopefully that doesn't happen, but if it does, that's a response. But also look for signs that he needs to go to the bathroom, or for these opportunities to take advantage of to really get him used to the bells at your home. Like, if he just wakes up, he's going to have to go to the bathroom. You might as well just take him straight over to the door, let him ring the bells, go out and go to the bathroom. If he gets up and he starts sniffing real heavily or panning real heavily, those are 2 signs that he has to go. If he starts spinning circles, at that point you just want to grab him and run, because nothing good is going to happen. So He has done really well with the house training, but if you do have any questions, please don't hesitate, give me a call. Also, I would recommend having him drag a leash around. That way, once again, 100% supervision, but that gives you a quick way to grab him if you need to. If you can't give him this supervision, use the crate as an asset. It'll at least, give you an hour break if that's what you need. So yeah. So now with that, let's talk about his leash work. So we do take him on 2 different types of walks. The first I briefly mentioned, and that's that off-leash or long lead walk. During that time, we really work on the come command. Keep him on a long lead until you know that he's going to respond to you and come back every time. But let him go on a walk where he can just be a dog, run around to sniff, to run after a ball, whatever it is. But really work on that come command. And that type of walk's great for his mental health. And then the second type of walk is our attention walk. That's where I use this short leash. I expect him to be right by my side. He should not be pulling. But at this point, like I said, he's still a puppy, and so I'm not going to have really strict expectations. I do expect that there's a loose leash, but I don't care if he's a step ahead of me. He doesn't have to be right at my knee at this point because I'm not applying pressure. But has to be on a loose leash, cannot be pulling, needs to constantly check in with me. We do have 2 commands with this. The first one is let's go, just signifying that we're going. And then the other one is easy if he starts to pull. If he does start to pull, I'm going to plant my feet, pop him twice, tell him easy, and I expect him to turn around and put the slack back in the leash. Also, I do expect him to stop and sit when I stop. So we will go out onto the road. Hopefully it's not too hot yet, and I will show you his walk. Let's go. When I do this type of walk, I do like to get his attention, so I'll ask him to sit here. Good boy. And then just pay attention to the way that he responds to me. Let's go. Nice loose leash, periodically looking up at me. Let's go. Good boy. Let's go. You can tell it's a little bit warm, so we're going to cut it short, but if he starts to lag behind, I can just give him a little bit of pressure. Same thing if he got like a little too far out to the side, I can just give him a little pressure. Let's go. Good boy. Very simple. He does really well, especially in the morning. Right now it is warm. I'm going to get him off the asphalt, but he's a great little dog. I'm sure you're excited to get him, and let me know if you have any questions.